Nico was brought up in the press conference yesterday. How's he doing? How's everything going? It was a little bizarre. What the H brought to you by Zen Sports. I don't know why that question was even asked, because at this point, it's pretty obvious Joe Milton's your ride or die quarterback, isn't it, John?
Yeah, I think so. But Josh Heupel told us he's doing great.
Yeah, he's doing great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. He hasn't played at all in any significant snaps. They said they weren't going to redshirt him, which of course they weren't going to do. He's not going to be around until 2028. And I mean, he's not going to be a fifth year guy. John, it opens up though, and you brought this up when we were talking last night prepping for the show, and Caleb and I talked about it at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting. Why haven't they played him? Is it just the love for Joe Milton, or is it that he's not performing as well in practice? I mean, it opens up Pandora's box of issues.
Yeah, it's could be all of the above. Team chemistry. Obviously, the coaching staff is infatuated with Joe Milton. They see him as a great team leader. He's their quarterback, and they're sticking with him. And I'm not proposing that Tennessee suddenly give Nico the job, but one thing we've noticed about Joe Milton, he goes into these sort of, for lack of a better term, slumps in the course of a game where he just doesn't play as well, and sometimes those slumps can extend for an entire half. That's why I would consider using Nico. Just give the guy a series. This guy won't fall. Just give him a series and see how he does. He would be a change of pace. Teams are certainly honed in on what Joe Milton does best and does worse, so they wouldn't be as prepared for Nico. It's a gamble, but I think it's also a gamble to stick based on the track record. When Joe Milton goes into one of those tailspins, will he come out of it in time? And so, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that. I wouldn't worry about team chemistry. I'd be trying to do anything I could to get an offense going that seems stagnant at times in games.
Caleb, I think team chemistry was an issue in the offseason. I think they wanted Joe Milton to be the guy, and I think that's been very clear. I was told that he would be the guy no matter what, unless Nico just really, really stumbled. I'm sorry, unless Joe really, really stumbled or he got hurt. But that love affair should go away once the season begins and you see Joe Milton struggle. And I know we're talking about this with Milton coming off one of his better games of the season, but I think it's still pertinent.
I don't think it's pertinent from last weekend at all. And I know people want to use the second half as an idea of him spiraling. I didn't see him spiral. Let's talk about what happened in the second half. Remember, Tennessee scores a touchdown at the end of the first half to go up 20-7. How does the second half play out? Alabama scores a touchdown on the first drive. That's not Joe Milton's fault. He wasn't on the field. Their first offensive possession, they're spotted the ball at the 4-yard line because of the correct call that I've never seen made before, where D. Williams looked like he was waving off the kickoff, and then Cam Seldon returned it. So Tennessee spotted the ball at the 4. Josh Heupel ran it 3 straight times. So you can't really put that on Joe Milton at that point. Josh Heupel was just playing for field position in the punt and just gave up on that drive. And so that drive's not Milton's fault. Alabama gets a field goal. What happens on the next drive? They're near midfield. Milton would have converted a first down on a pass to Ramel Keaton, but Ramel Keaton had to bobble the pass, which is why he fell short 1 yard of the first down. And then Tennessee got stopped on the 4th and 1. Again, that's not Joe Milton. That's his receiver not catching cleanly an easy ball thrown right his way. Then the next drive, on a first down screen pass, Tennessee picks up a holding penalty that kills that drive. And so they play it safe and punt. And after that is when Alabama takes control. So it wasn't none of those first 3 drives that Tennessee scored on, they were 0% Joe Milton's fault. Now, then the strip sack came after Alabama was up 27-20. Yes, that's Joe Milton's fault, but that's one bad play, one killed drive. But there were 3 drives before that literally have nothing to do with Joe Milton not being able to score. It was all on so many other random factors that you can't really put on him. So I can't really say he spiraled in this game. I can say that with the Florida game, but I can't say that with this game.
Well, he only passed for about 90 yards in the second half.
Right, but again, 2 drives were taken out of his hands, and they just ran the ball 3 straight times. And so I don't know if, I mean, maybe you could say that shows a lack of faith they have in Milton, but there's the one on the 4-yard line, and then there's the holding penalty on Jacob Warren. And both of those drives, Heupel just decided to play it safe and punt the ball and just run it 3 times.
Well, the strip sack was disastrous. I can't defend what Joe Milton did in that second half, because when this is a quarterback-oriented game, when you're so reliant on your quarterback making plays in a close game, and he didn't make them for whatever reason, whether it was a play call or whatever. But I do think one thing that enters into it, I think the coaches, although they espouse so much confidence in Joe Milton, their actions and their play calls don't indicate that they really believe that Joe Milton can get it done in that kind of game.
I 100% agree with that. I 100% agree with that even earlier in the season, John, where I felt like this offense was really pared down because of Joe Milton's shortcomings. I thought you saw that very early in the season.
Oh yeah, and one thing I've noticed to me, I've not
allow myself to introduce myself.
Yeah, I am me. I know Joe Milton, it seems to be throwing the ball with more touch now. I thought early in the season, I mean, he was throwing the ball way too hard on a lot of passes, but maybe I'm imagining that. But his touch just seems better in recent games to me. So he's improved in that area, and he certainly his devotion to running the ball against Alabama, that was a huge plus for the offense. So it's not like I'm ripping Joe Milton here. I thought the first half against Alabama was the best half he's had since he's been at Tennessee when you consider the competition. But still, I think the offense is limited because of what he can do.
I agree with that. I think that we underestimated Jalen Hyatt's ability to stretch defenses a little bit, but I do think it comes down to Joe Milton's I'm not questioning his intelligence. Don't get this wrong, but his quick processing under fire, John, I think is the biggest issue. It just seems like at times he hits that back foot and the ball's not coming out. And that has been a consistent theme throughout the year.
Yeah, his decision making on the field is baffling at times. Those out of bounds, those runouts, for lack of a better term, are things that really stick with fans because they're so unusual looking. I haven't seen many players make those kind of decisions in the heat of battle where they just not sure what to do. Run it, throw it, run it, throw it. No, I'll just run out of bounds.
No, that's kind of unusual.
I got a question for both y'all, actually, since y'all were covering this team and I wasn't, obviously. And the Joe Milton runs, which opened up his passing attack, kind of reminds me of, and I know, Dave, you talked about that they just got rid of the quarterbacks coaching. It didn't get rid of him, but Lane Kiffin started working with him directly. But Jonathan Crompton's renaissance in 2009, I felt a large part of that was in the Georgia game, Lane Kiffin realized that if you have Jonathan Crompton roll out, you send him on rollouts, he's very, very good throwing the ball out of the pocket. And the minute Tennessee started doing more of that, it reset defensive coverages, which is why Crompton had his renaissance down the second half of that season. Do you think that there's a similar type of renaissance that may have happened with Joe Milton in the Alabama game, where it's just him running the ball a few times is going to open up more passing options for him down and allow for a very strong finish to this season?
That's interesting, Caleb. John, I wouldn't rule that out. I don't know that he's going to suddenly become Joe Montana, but he could have, people would have said the same thing about Jonathan Crompton after the Georgia game in 2009. They would have said, oh, well, what is it? A blind squirrel finds an acorn every once in a while or something like that. But he went on to finish the second half of the season quite well. So, John, I wouldn't rule that out, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
Well, my guess is after the Texas A&M game, the coaches told Joe Milton, "You've got to run the ball. You can't go out of bounds. You've got to go as hard as you can for a first down or whatever. You've got to make an extra effort." I don't see how you could not tell him that. That was, yeah, I know Tennessee won the game, but it was a close game, and you just can't have that when a first down's on the line and your quarterback just runs out of bounds. You've got to address that. So maybe they sent a strong message to Joe Milton. This doesn't get it done. Here's what you've got to do. I don't know about the comparison to Jonathan Crompton. What I remember about Jonathan Crompton, I think it was more Lane Kiffin than anybody that sort of took him under wing. And Lane Kiffin has a great track record with quarterbacks, and he said, "Okay, what does this guy do well, and make this work in the offense?" And as you remember, Dave, Tennessee really relied on Montario Hardesty in that season at running back. He was he had a great year. And after having so many injuries earlier in his career, he was tremendous. But Jonathan Crompton played so much better. And as I recall, Lane Kiffin simplified what Jonathan Crompton had to do. He had him reading maybe half the field instead of the whole field. And it certainly worked out well because that was a complete transformation of what he had been and what he became.
Well, it's been long enough. I can tell you exactly what happened in that situation. I noticed that Lane Kiffin was spending a lot more time specifically with the quarterbacks. And David Reeves, his brother-in-law, was the quarterback's coach then. And I asked Lane, I said, "Are you spending more time with the quarterbacks? It seems like it." And he said, "Yeah, but I don't want that out there because it makes him look bad." So I can tell you that that's exactly what happened. It was Lane Kiffin stepping in. So can Josh Heupel do that with Joe Milton the remainder of the season?
Heupel doesn't have any in-laws on the staff, does he?
Well, he didn't take David Reeves to Southern California, which is perhaps what undermined the West Coast hostess gate.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, the hostess gate. Does everybody on the message board remember that when David Reeves thought it would be a great idea to send a couple of fine-looking young ladies to cheer for? I can't even remember the players now in North Carolina and hold up Tennessee signs in the stands as if that was legal.
It maybe was North Carolina. It was North Carolina or South Carolina. I think I remember one of the names of the hostesses that went on the road, but I won't bring that up.